Welcome everyone to Alcoholically Correct. I am JB. I'm joined today and always by
Zach, here to tell you what you're wrong about today.
Of course. Thanks for joining, Zach. How's everything going?
Surviving again. Still pandemic lifestyle. So, not going anywhere, not going to do anything. Just
fair enough.
Just floating along.
Still no job, trying to, find meaning by doing these podcasts and things like that?
We'll go with meaning, yes. I'm not just using it to fill time.
Right, exactly. And to bitch out loud because you don't get to do it in front of people as often as you'd like anymore.
Right. Normally I used to be able to yell at people in bars. Now I don't get to do that anymore. It's just not the same. It's not
anymore,
the same.
Right?
I miss it.
Oh, man. Speaking of bars, why don't we share? We like to share with our audience what we're drinking, what you're sipping on today. You always got the fancy beer.
Today I have a Weihenstephaner. It is a Weihenstephaner Vitus. It is a Weizenbach.
Ooh.
Yes, and
that sounds German.
It does sound German. It is actually brewed in Germany. So that's good. This one's actually brewed in Germany.
Awesome.
So this one is actually, Oh, it was brewed under the purity law of 1516. That's always impressive. But 7.7% alcohol. Oh, you don't know about the purity law?
Oh, and I was going to say, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you know the purity law of 1516?
Yeah, so the purity law of 1516 limits the number of things ingredients that are allowed to go inside of a beer. I believe, and this one you can't quote me on, but it says that it can be sugar or malt, wheat, hops, and water. That's it. So you can't have like fruits in your beers, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
That's the purity law of 1516.
So
I'd have to go back and double check on everything there, but that could be a whole different topic for another day, because I'm sure there's a heck of a lot more.
Sure. Well, I was going to say, I had literally never heard of it, so kudos to you. That was impressive. I think this was episode 1 I was on this, but I really, really enjoy the Sierra Nevada Summerfest this year, which is ironic. It's about the only good thing about summer 2020, except, of course, the premiere of our show.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good for us. Anyways, and then what's shooting on?
Of course, vodka.
I'm sitting here with my rum. That's 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
By next recording, I'm going to try and have something different to shoot. You don't have to.
I promise that I'm not going to do that.
There you go. All
right. Yeah, I think we should take that shot. In? Here we go.
Fair enough.
Cheers.
All right, let's do it. Salud, episode 3.
Yeah. It's
okay. So it's 2020.
It is.
And that's, of course, election year. Voting's coming up, all that stuff. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you vote. So we don't want to jump in on the election, though.
So
we
actually,
like to
that's a great lead in. How many presidents have you voted for?
Well, okay, so winners, none.
Okay.
I'm 0 for 3 on winners because I went Gary Johnson and then I went McCain and Romney. But I've voted 3 times, so 3 times I voted for president.
No, you haven't.
No, I really did.
No, you didn't. You never voted for the president.
You weren't there.
You've never voted for a president. Your votes don't go.
Do explain.
Yeah, the votes don't actually go to the president. They actually are being used to have the Electoral College who actually chooses the president. So everybody who says that they voted for president is a liar.
And that is a great lead in then, because that's essentially the topic of our show. We did want to talk about.
We're talking about liars.
College, right?
I've got the wrong notes. Sorry.
I said we don't want to go right in on the election. So no, we're not talking about liars yet. We're gonna start off talking about the Electoral College. I mean, there's been a lot of debate over the last few years. I think everyone's aware of the Electoral College. It's why we have our current president, and that's not a statement. I'm just saying.
I mean, it is exactly a statement. It's not a.
It is not a
judgment. There's no judgment.
Statement. There's no right. I'm just saying that's how it happened because we had popular vote go one way, and that happened in the year 2000 as well. It happened 1 or 2 other times.
Yeah, in the past 30 years, I believe it's happened 3 times, and all 3 times have been a Republican who's lost the popular vote, and 3 times, I think.
Still won the election.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I, we'll get into our feelings on the Electoral College for sure, because that's one of the big things is what we think should happen, if anything, to change the way that we vote in that way. Before we do that, though, you kind of touched on it with it's happened 3 times in history. Do you have kind of a rundown? How do we get the Electoral College? What does it do? That type of stuff for anyone not fully filled in, or,
of course.
just so I can sip on beer for a minute.
Absolutely. So, Electoral College, why the heck did we start with it? The initial founding fathers were like, hey, you know what? I don't think that
we finished Electoral High School. It's time to move on.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's an independent group of people, and it was supposed to be an independent group of people that's not biased. And this is according to their initial notes and the letters that they wrote.
Right.
So it was created to counter the idea of Congress choosing the president, because in Europe in the UK and that's who chose it. It was their representatives chose who the next president would be. So you elected people and they elected the president. So it'd be like Congress.
This is their parliament at that
Correct.
point. Right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't really care about the UK government at the moment. There's too much other things going on, and I did enough research.
Blimey, Zach! Let me do a terrible British accent to tell you how mean it is you don't care about the British people. I'll just insult them openly by doing this.
I don't know what you just did, but it never needs to happen again. There's a reason you never made it as a voice artist, right?
That's fair. Yeah, no, I've never been good at impressions. That's not.
No.
I can do a couple of random like Disney characters and stuff really, really spot on, but I cannot learn impressions in any way. So and accents, I'm the worst with, except country, because I'm from Tennessee. So
there you go.
It's my actual accent. As the audience probably knows by shot number 3 of our shows.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm throwing us off course.
You are.
Electoral College. What really happened? It was an electoral high school graduation.
Correct. So out of curiosity, out of just the whole point, so the number of votes in Congress, or the number of electoral votes is, you have 100 votes for the Senate, you have 435 votes for Congress, and then you have 3 votes for DC. That's kind of...
Is that current numbers? Congress changes by the population, right?
And Congress does not add, it reallocates votes. Yes. So every 10 years with the census, the number of votes are allocated by state change. So the number of votes remain the same. The allocation of that changes. So I
didn't realize that. So it's always the same number of Congress people. It's just a matter of which states get how many representatives by the census every 10 years.
Yes.
I really didn't know that.
Yeah, no. That's how it goes. So that's what we do. So right now, the Electoral College members are chosen in all sorts of different ways. It's state by state, get to choose how it goes to. So sometimes the governor chooses it. To the actual presidential candidate for the to the party leader, like that, like the presidential candidate can choose something. It's weird. There's a whole bunch of different ways that are chosen. It doesn't make a difference.
Interesting.
It doesn't make a difference because they're supposed to vote the way the people. Yeah.
Right.
Supposed to.
Just like the Electoral College people are supposed to be unbiased. Like you can be in the country and not have some form of a bias.
Correct. Yeah, so initially the way that it worked is everybody in the Electoral College got 2 votes. The highest number of people who got voted, the person who got the most votes is the president. The person who got the second number of votes is the vice president. And as we all know, because we all watched Hamilton, because we all stole somebody else's Disney Plus account.
Hey, speak for yourself. Some people worked at Disney and gave up their main gate free passes to get free Disney Plus. I didn't say me.
All 6 of those people, yes.
Right.
And then everyone else stole their Disney Plus. Yeah.
Everyone's on the same 6 free accounts, and Disney's like, why? No.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
yeah, that's what happened.
So we all watched Hamilton.
Yes, and so we all know
that's what happened with Aaron Burr, Thomas Jefferson, the vote and everything.
Yep, and that's when things got screwed up. So Thomas Jefferson actually tied with the VP candidate Alexander Burr in the
Aaron Burr.
Andrew Burr. Aaron Burr? It's
Burr.
Aaron Burr. Whatever.
Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it right the first time. So
whatever.
Or I did. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyways, you're alcoholically correct.
Yeah. Are you sure it wasn't Andrew Burr? I could be wrong.
Oh, it's Aaron.
Okay. Whatever.
I wish we had penalty shots or something. That'd be a crappy show for you, but it'd be fun for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I don't know why I thought Andrew, but in any case,
let me tell you what you're wrong about today, Zach. It must be my new glass. My I drink and I know things glass. Interesting. All right, good to know. Okay, so Aaron Burr, go on.
Yep. Aaron Burr. I don't know why I thought Andrew, but whatever. I had to double check because I have notes that I actually had to write for this because I don't memorize all this. So I have Andrew Burr, and I just was like, why the heck do I have? Any case, doesn't matter. So they tied. Thomas Jefferson tied with, Andrew Burr. So what ended up happening is then we suddenly had to go to a tiebreaker. Luckily, we have rules for a tiebreaker. It requires a 2/3 majority of the House of Representatives.
Okay.
And so basically, since they tied a number of votes for, everyone chose the president, and then everyone chose the secondary was, Andrew Burr. So, Aaron Burr. I don't know why I'm going to keep doing that. I'm in trouble for this one.
Yep. All right. Fair enough. And it's funny because we didn't have to talk about Aaron Burr. Like it was
a Hamilton.
I understand the relevance, but you chose this tie-in as far as
I don't know what I'm doing.
This is a great example of where this came from.
I don't know. Stupid notes.
That's okay. Decisions were made.
All right. So in any case, we at that point were like, crap. And so when you hear Thomas Jefferson said, oh, we're going to change that in Hamilton, we did. We implemented the 12th Amendment. So the next one that actually mattered was the 23rd Amendment, which says that, hey, D.C. gets equal number of electoral votes. So even though D.C. doesn't have representatives in Congress, they actually get 3 votes. Two as if they had 2 senators, and 1 for a House of Representatives. And that was the 23rd Amendment.
Who gets those seats? Do they vote? Do the citizens of D.C. vote?
People in D.C. do get to vote. There are American citizens, and they do get a vote in the election.
Aren't they making it a state now too? Didn't something like that happen?
There's been talks about that for a long time.
I feel like more recently it's been more solidified, but anyways, we won't delve into another offset. But no, it was just the way you said something about them not being represented, but they had votes, and I'm like, well, aren't the votes representation? That's where
remember this is this is why it's not 535, which is the number of members in Congress. It's 535 plus 3 because of DC, because of the 23rd Amendment.
Got it. Fair enough.
Okay, so what ended up happening next was 1950 is something we actually had a chance where basically it was attempted to kind of come up with a bill that says that each state's vote had to be cast proportionally. So, and a 40% majority of all votes wins, otherwise got sent to a joint session of their House and Senate. Basically, what it would say is that even if the thing is split 50-50, your votes get split 50-50.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In any case, 1956, 2 votes per state allocated to the popular vote winner. The rest were allocated proportionally to the popular vote. So now it was changed. So now when, you get the 2 votes for the state are automatically going to the popular vote winner in that state. Then the rest are proportionally. That's how it was. And then 1979, it was voted to abolish it entirely and just replace with direct voting, popular vote. That didn't happen. 1992, we discussed getting rid of it. We didn't do it. 1997, we discussed doing it. We didn't do it. We actually had and so then we had our screwed up things where they.
If I remember correctly, it takes a massive majority of the states to approve getting rid of it.
It's an amendment
because it's an amendment.
It's an amendment. Yeah. So you need a 2/3 majority, supermajority.
Yeah.
Versus a. There are other ways to solve this without that, though, and keep without having to deal with an amendment, which these are kind of...
Well, and that's the thing. So that's where we're at now, is each state has a certain number of electoral votes. Essentially, whoever wins that state gets the total...
All the votes. Except for Nebraska and Maine.
For that state.
Nebraska and Maine...
I was about to say, there might be a couple little exceptions.
Yep. Nebraska and Maine are the only 2 states that I believe currently allow you to split the votes. So if you do a 50-50, you get one of the votes sent each way. Again, it's Nebraska and Maine, so who really cares?
Right. Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No insults to Nebraska or Maine specifically from
just
me.
Population. No, it's just population. It's 6 votes.
You're just saying those 6 votes, right? Won't really usually make much of a difference. But yeah, and then 270 wins, 270 plus. So you need the majority.
Yep.
So
exactly. And again, if it ties, then we
and-
go to the whole 2/3 majority in the House
Yep.
thing, or the 2/3 majority in the Senate. I forget which one it was. It was 2/3 majority in.
I feel like it's the House, right?
I thought it was the Senate. Yep, House. Sorry, it was the House. Correct. That's what I said earlier.
Okay, yeah.
I have notes.
You did.
Yeah. So basically, that's it. And so that's again where we're stuck today. Is right now we have the Electoral College. Popular vote means nothing, as we found. It's entirely based on the representation that you have.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I wouldn't mind finding a middle ground tweak.
Hey.
That.
I was going to say, hey, there are some.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I wouldn't mind finding something where the popular vote has at least an importance, but I do believe in the importance of the Electoral College. Like the way you said it, where we're stuck, I don't want to just offhand accept that we're in the same viewpoint as far as the Electoral College. As of now, until we have something like that, enough people are behind. Like, I would rather have it than just have the popular vote myself, personally.
Oh, no, I'd rather completely abolish it. But that's okay. That's a different thing. So in any case, since, again, abolishing it requires an actual amendment to the Constitution, which is a pain,
Right.
we have some other alternatives. So again, remember, each state manages its own election. That's constitutionally how it is. And each state handles its own. So what we have the capability to do is implement some systems at the state level which decide who is going to be voting, how your representatives or your Electoral College members are going to vote. So some of the things that we've talked about in the past are implementing a ranked voting system. So ranked votes is basically saying, hey, you have number one candidate. This is my number 2 candidate. This is my number 3 candidate. The way that it works is when it goes to it, you take a look and say, hey, who has the most votes? Okay. Do they have a majority? No. Alrighty. So now what we do is say who has the least number 1 votes. Oh, okay. It's, Guy C. Guy Ferrari has the least number of votes for president. But, so all of his.
Can I tell you that if he was running this year and a viable candidate, he would at least have my consideration still until November of the other 2 viable candidates.
I don't know if that says more about you or the state of affairs in the world. Maybe a mixture of both.
Can it be both?
It can definitely be both. It could definitely be both.
This is why we're friends. Okay.
Yeah. So, ranked voting. So again, most people's choice is whatever, candidate number 1. And then, so some people voted Guy Ferrari as number 1. Well, Guy Ferrari had the least number of votes. And so therefore, all of Guy Ferrari's votes are now going to be reallocated to their number 2. So the number 2 person was, I don't know.
Andrew
Yang, sure. And so now all those votes would get allocated to whoever they had chosen for number 2. So the candidate number 2 in their ranked voting list, that's where the vote would get allocated until there's a majority reach. And so even with this system, you still have a majority wins. So the person who wins all the votes in that state would not necessarily be the person who got the majority of direct votes. So if one person got 40% of the vote, and then the next person got 35% of the vote, they wouldn't have a majority, and it wouldn't necessarily be a majority. The person who has a true majority of all the votes overall, like over 50%.
Yeah. Throughout the whole election.
Yeah.
And across all the states. That's interesting.
And so that's ranked voting. And so then there's
as a non-party affiliate at this point in my life, that excites me just in the premise that it obviously opens up more possibilities of more candidates
for third parties. Correct. It does really well to allow for third party candidates.
Right.
So that's
ranked. So that's ranked choice voting.
That's ranked choice voting. And yeah. So again, in the end, all of that state's Electoral College members get allocated to the person who wins that state still. So you still have all of it being allocated. So it's still a winner take all in each state normally.
And but you would still need a supermajority to make that change, correct?
No, this is implemented at the state level because how the Electoral College members vote is completely independent of everything else. So this would be a state's implementing ranked choice voting.
So now here's my question with that. So that's like Nebraska. In a way, we have a version of that with Nebraska and Maine being the two states where I'm just saying that each state has its own control to some degree.
No, each state absolutely has it, and that's constitutionally sound, is that each state manages its own election.
Yep. But so to that point, and you did say that at the beginning of this, I am assuming, but I won't extrapolate on an assumption that there could be downsides to certain states approving it while other states are not, as far as who their electoral votes are going to and what it could do to the election. If we had 5 somewhat decent sized states, but you still had a lot of the main states, California and all, staying straight popular vote or whatever for their electoral college, then I could see that. I mean, do you know kind of what the opposition point is on that? I just have to assume that there's a reason that certain states haven't already started to do this, working towards that end goal.
It's very easy. Why would a 2-party system want to allow for a third party?
Fair.
Right now,
Fair
you
point.
only have Republicans
so
and Democrats.
So you're saying is across all 50 states, yeah, it's still very rare that you have an independent reach any level of office. And even if they do, they are that exception.
And that's only looking, so that's at, and so each individual state's electoral, so that would be each individual state's government, the state level government. So that would be the state's House of Representatives, and the state's Congress would have to pass that internally in each state.
Yep. Yeah, and so you have a bunch of Democrats and Republicans that you're asking to essentially work against their own self-interests, which is also why we don't have term limits. Got it.
Yes, okay. Exactly. No. So that's the reason why we haven't implemented that.
So outside of that,
it wouldn't hurt anything in this particular case. And here's the reason why. Again, it is still going to be winner takes all in that state. So it's not like you're going to be reducing the number of votes. All it is still winner take all in that state. So.
Okay. Yeah, but I still wonder too, and I don't know. This is just, now I'll extrapolate on my assumption, just because it's fun that I can still say that almost 2 beers and a shot in. Let's go with last election, and I don't know that this would have happened by any means, but Gary Johnson was for a third party candidate outside of like a Ross Perot that really caught that fire, right? Mm-hmm. He had the political bona fides. He had been the governor and stuff like that. So let's say he wins New Mexico, and let's say the rest of the Electoral College breaks down in a way that I think New Mexico's around 10, right? So if it's 260 something to 260 something, and those 10 votes go to Gary Johnson, because with ranked choice voting, neither party won out, Trump or Hillary, by first, second, third choice, and it propelled him to the top. Those people had voted for him before to be in power. So it's not totally outside the realm, especially if they had ranked choice voting. Would that not throw the election itself, essentially, I say, into chaos, but it would go to the House of Representatives selecting the president, correct?
That would be correct in that case. And I mean, it's you'd be looking at a rare case. You'd have to be one of the few states that are actually the like decent enough size. No, not even decent enough size. Nobody really cares per se about that. It's really going to be the states that are going to be flipping one way or the other. So you're looking at you have to be one of the 7 states that actually matter in an election.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. It's the 7 states that matter in an election.
Right.
So yeah, so that's one way, is the ranked voting system. And again, winners still take all. The other way,
that's what I was gonna say. You have popular vote, of course, and that one's obviously self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Just straight popular vote.
But that requires basically that requires an amendment, because the popular vote does not involve the Electoral College.
Right. And with that, you're essentially superseding what we just talked about with each state runs its own election rules.
No, you're not doing that at all. I mean, each state would still run its own election rules. You would just...
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the way... If that law applies in a way that lets them... I mean, this is the stuff that would get fought in court. Because what I'm saying is, if the law allows them the type of rights that would let them go from a popular vote to a ranked choice voting when no other state does it, then it also, I would think... Again, it prohibits the rights to get rid of the Electoral College altogether, because then
because it's still
their election doesn't have the same power.
This is again why it requires a super majority to pass an amendment to the Constitution. So the states would have already voted to change the Constitution.
Right.
So, popular. It still requires. Yeah, it requires a supermajority of that, and it wouldn't
because of that reason. Because you're amending the Constitution.
Yeah, it couldn't be thrown in courts because Constitution.
Fair enough. Okay. So any other like popular options for voting?
There's two other ways. Again, so we already mentioned it. It's the not winner take all for states.
Okay.
So and again,
loser takes all. We do it like golf. Whoever gets the lowest score wins.
It's like Nebraska and Maine. So Nebraska and Maine splits the votes. So if, for example, 30% of the population voted for one candidate and 60% voted for the other, and those are the two ones, their state votes would get split 2 for one candidate, 1 for the other. And it's split.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And that's, again, this is a state level choice to do that. Again, we have 2 states that do it, but cool, whatever.
Do we? Is that Maine and Nebraska?
That's Maine and Nebraska who do it that way.
Yeah. Sorry. Misunderstood.
Then the other one that people talk about is called a runoff election. Runoff is basically everyone votes for whoever the heck they want to vote for. And then, so this is different than a ranked voting. And then what you do is after that, you get the 2 top popular votes. The 2 candidates who have the most votes then have a runoff. So those 2 candidates are the ones that are actually doing the vote. So, for example, so basically the way that works is everyone can vote for whoever the heck they want, right? And so you only look at the first vote. But then, you know what? If you see that, for example, like your second vote, you don't necessarily... It allows for more candidates to run rather than a ranked voting where you get 1 through 3. You can actually do more because now you can have 6 candidates. And so, you might have, in ranked voting, you might have 1, 2, and 3. For me, it would have been in the primary, for example, it would have been Bernie, then Warren, then Yang would be my 1, 2, 3. But notice I don't have Biden involved in there, so my vote would disappear. Now, the way runoff would work is instead of doing something like that, it would end up being that, for example, in this case, Bernie, who had the second number of popular votes, and Biden would have to do a runoff afterwards. So this way, people's votes like Warren aren't automatically being associated to one. They get to choose to what they vote for. So, if you wanted Yang and somebody else, you still get the option to choose the lesser of 2 evils in a runoff.
Right.
If that's how you want to take it.
Interesting.
So that's the other one. So those are the 4 major ways. Abolish the Electoral College. Ranked voting, which is 1 through 3, and the lowest person's votes get bounced up to the next candidate until you get a thing, and that's still winner takes all. Runoff, it's still going to be winners take all. And then finally, it's not winner take all. So, which is the 2 states.
Yeah.
And so those are
and I mean... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, those are the 4 different things that people have been talking about. Also...
And so, like I say...
I'm switching over to an Elysian Contact Haze, a hazy IPA.
I already switched over, but I went to Yingling, so I didn't really feel like anything I should brag about.
No, not so much.
No offense to Yingling. It's a great beer. Obviously, I bought it and I'm drinking it, but I mean, it's a
Yingling.
It's Yingling. Let's put it this way. They're more likely to pull our video because they don't want us advertising than they need us to not, discredit them because they're doing fine. Anyways, but no, so of those options, I guess my question to you, I kind of exposed this for myself already. I think ranked choice voting of those sounds the most intriguing to me. I like anything that does open up our 2-party system. I think that corruption level, I do want to touch on the state of an election in a minute, so we can kind of get to that and what I was going to say with the corruption thing. But my point being, I'd love something that just opens up our system altogether and really gets more voices and less concentration of power, because then I think it's going to help break up things like lobbyist power and things like that, because it's going to help spread that out. You don't know who's going to be in power each time, and you don't have a handful of people in a room. Going back to since you brought in Hamilton and all that, I'll go back to being in the room where it happened, right? I want to expand the room where it happened. I want a bigger room with more people. I want to be in the room where it happened.
Exactly.
So.
No, I can see that. My personal.
So what's your? I mean, so mine would be ranked choice voting. What do you think?
I like the runoff. I really do. I enjoy the runoff. Okay. It's a nice middle ground in terms of that. It has some of the benefits of ranked choice, but then you still get to choose the lesser of 2 evils. So your first choice didn't win. Okay, cool. but now I still don't have to just worry about not having a second.
I'm not stuck with my
Because sometimes your second and third choice might not be a reasonable candidate, or might not have to be a thing. So that would be where, in each, it just gives you an extra chance.
I get that. And then, but you said that of those, you would actually do away with the Electoral College rather than the popular vote. Let's have that conversation, since that's, why do you feel that way?
It's an idiotic system that's designed for the past. It was designed because of the fact that the population at the time did not have access to information about candidates and did not look into it just wasn't available to them, right? You had newspapers and that's it, and it's slow, and you really didn't have very much access to information. This is the original founders' ideas. And so instead, the Electoral College was put into place to be a independent series of people who would make the choice based on what the popular vote was. And each Electoral College member was told to vote by the local state's government. I think it's an outdated system that doesn't need to be there. And it provides, like, for example, why the heck does somebody's vote in Nebraska, for example, have a heck of a lot more voting power than my vote here in Florida? Or
see, but and we've gone round and round on this, so I know we won't convince each other, but I disagree, because the silliness of that statement, and this is where it goes back to facts are relative. We both know the facts of what a vote in each state means in the current system, right? We both understand the Electoral College well enough to know that fact. But what I'm telling you is, in my opinion, my vote in Florida means a heck of a lot more than my vote in Nebraska would, because Nebraska is going to go the way Nebraska is going to go. So I understand what you're saying is that person's vote, because there's the I think I understand what you're saying as far as, like, essentially there's less
population divided by number of members, population divided by numbers of members. So for example, why would Nebraska, their Electoral College vote, I think it's like 1 to 70, so like it's something like that. It's some ridiculously low number because Nebraska has nobody living in it, in comparison to, for example, Florida. So your and my vote is worth a lot less in terms of the overall vote for the end of election. We're a swing state,
but it's not. But that's why. But you're explaining why the Electoral College does work to a degree. You really are, even while saying it's not. Because, again, yes, in one viewpoint of the Electoral College, what you're saying has some technical accuracy. But the votes in Florida are so close that the fact that my vote's going to bounce and whatever it may be, that matters more. So yes, your vote specifically, if you are going to land left almost every time, is going to mean less in Nebraska, and in a way it's going to mean less in California because it's already going that way.
Right, so here's the perfect example, California.
But in the state of Florida, it means a lot, because there's not as many people that are just going to be left.
But I'm not talking about the fact that we're a swing state. I'm not talking about that portion of it.
But that matters.
It does, but that's a separate
conversation. And there's no such thing as a swing state without some form of an Electoral College or something.
Right,
something
so we
where
should get rid of that.
Has.
Right, so why is a swing state? Why do 7 states get to choose the election every year?
Again, because essentially, to me, the reason the Electoral College mattered and was important was, if you look at Europe, the beer bug, as we'll call it, going on. I like that phrase, but that going on has really shown us a lot, because people always compare the U.S. numbers to somewhere like, France or this and Italy and whatever. But then it's like, well, yeah, but if you look at Europe and then you look at America, and I'm not getting into those numbers. What I'm getting at there is the United States of America is extremely unique. We are essentially what should be multiple countries brought together as one. And I'm not saying it's the only place that is like that, but I'm just saying, that was the whole point of those colonies coming together the way they did. So what the Electoral College did was it said, okay, Nebraska, these 6 votes of yours are going to have this power. And so that's why swing states are important, I think, because that's where people with different ideologies, and we are seeing more and more how different the ideologies are here, but can concentrate into an area evenly and kind of sway the election back and forth. If we just went straight popular vote, you would only have a handful of states still deciding the election because the majority of the population lives in a handful of states.
Right. So you're saying that the majority of people shouldn't have the right choice. You don't believe that the majority of people, the people who are actually paying the dollars into the tax system, the majority of people...
I believe every person living in California should not have the power to say how the federal government is run for Nebraska each and every election. I'm 1,000% saying that. I'm saying if we do away with that the United States of America does not work anymore because
it works so
those
much better.
Middle states... I disagree.
Right,
and again, I'm okay with changing it, but I'm not okay with doing away with it.
Well, then here's the middle ground for that. The quickest and simplest way to kind of do a middle ground and start moving towards something that makes more sense and is more sane is not winner take all. So it's proportional votes in the Electoral College. Proportional voting, which is exactly what it is. Again,
a percentage of each state leads to a percentage of each.
Yeah, so in California, if you're right wing, or you lean right, your vote still counts.
You still get 2.
Your vote still counts.
You know what? You're right. I actually may even like that more than ranked choice voting in a way. In a way, as far as my other point of each state needs to have a strong basis of say in the way the country is ran.
And this is where, yes, if you do that, it splits. So now you don't have any state now that is actually a swing state. Because, for example, Florida, we're close to 50-50 every year. Our Electoral College votes would be put at 50-50.
Would split right down the middle.
It completely gets rid of it.
Yeah.
That's the easy, quick, middle ground solution. That is what it is.
I'm with you. I really am.
It gets rid of swing states. It gets rid of them completely. And now everyone's vote actually matters.
Sure.
And
I would agree with that. I would. And like you say, I actually still would like ranked choice voting only because I think we've gotten to a point where the Democrat and Republican parties are their own form of plague. The
two-party system is a whole separate, complete problem that we need to solve.
That's a different episode. I'm not gonna. But I do. I wanted to pivot into this before we move on to the actual topic number 2. Mm-hmm. And so I did want to kind of touch on the election since we joked about it at the beginning of the topic. As far as where we're at, we do now officially have our candidates, the two parties. We have Biden-Harris versus Trump-Pence. So just kind of we'll do the sticky thing since we are a politics podcast talk show. Where do you feel like the election's at? Where do you feel like things are going to go? If you want to talk about your vote personally, obviously.
Is it really a big question where my vote's going? Either way, so...
You're going to write in Bernie Sanders, I would assume.
Okay. No, of course, I'm going to be voting Biden-Harris. Biden was not one of my first 3 choices, as you heard, but it is the lesser of 2 evils. One of my favorite things that I heard was that you have to think of voting as more of you're voting for. It's like public transportation. Look, your vote is to get you as close to where you want to go as possible. You're not going to get there. You're not voting to select your new one true love. You're not voting to choose somebody that you love. You're voting to choose the person and platform that's going to get you closest to where you want to be. Yeah, sure, you're going to have a long distance to go, and it's not going to necessarily get you there exactly, but it's going to get you close, and that's kind of what voting is. So, lesser of 2 evils, that type of stuff. So, yeah, of course, I'm going to be voting Biden-Harris no matter what, because the Democratic Party gets me closer to where I want to be.
Nice. And then before I get into mine, if you had to put money on it, if you don't mind, being right or wrong in a few months, what do you think's going to happen come November?
Popular vote is...
Like, how do you think it'll fall?
Popular vote 100% is going to go to Biden-Harris. There's no question about it whatsoever. And if that doesn't pan out, then that brings up a lot of questions. Right. That brings up a heck of a lot of questions, and it has things to do with voter disenfranchisement, basically.
Yeah, we gotta cover the whole post office in a different episode. Yeah, so let's not get into that.
And there's
whole
a lot
thing.
of things there. So popular vote 100% is going Biden-Harris. That's not even a question. The real question is going to come down to is the electoral split. And right now, it looks like it's going Biden-Harris just overall because a lot of people are like they've got a little bit of regret on their vote for Trump and the fact that he's kind of changed the way things work and the fact that he kind of blatantly ignores portions of the Constitution, such as, for example, who controls the purse. different things like that with his most recent executive order.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that...
Right.
And if you look about thinking about...
Well, there's a delay on when we record and when we release, and it is Trump, so who knows what crazy executive orders he might... So maybe not his recent, but the ones that would attest to who controls the purse strings, right? Just in case, you know.
And it's just the constitutional violations is something that people have issues with, and so a lot of people who did vote for Trump to begin with are no longer voting Trump. So I believe that, again, you're going to have popular vote easy. You're going to still be looking at a few different swing states, and it's going to come down to it. I do believe that Biden, Harris are going to win the swing states, assuming no funkiness.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is you're still afraid of what's actually going to happen.
Well, the funkiness, when I say funkiness, I think that it's going to come down to, post office, that type of stuff, funkiness.
Yeah,
that's where.
And like we said, we'll touch on that. Well, one thing I'll say that kind of attests to your point. Harris was my least favorite choice of the viable candidates that.
It's not true.
Biden was
Klobuchar.
No, I would have gone Klobuchar over Harris.
Wow.
I would have. I not happily. I'm not like, oh, thank God. I still would have been like, ugh, really? But I would have been okay with her on if she's a 2, Harris is still a 1. At least is mine. Everything in the debates, everything about her record, just threw me. So I want to make that very, very clear. However, what did I say in episode number 2? I'm always working to prove myself wrong. And I'll give you I don't want to go off on a whole Kamala Harris piece, but I'll give you a great peek into what I found where I was wrong. I first heard the, talking point about how she was threatening to arrest parents for their children missing school when she was whatever, the prosecutor or whatever it was, right? When she was a cop, essentially. But she came out. And on its head, I'm like, wow, like that really does sound effed up the way it was being described.
Of course.
What did I do? I looked into it. And it was because in her area where that mattered, especially I think it was the African American communities in that area, it had gone within a certain couple of decades from like 10% missed to like 60%
Yeah, the
missed,
truancy rate just jumped insane.
It jumped insanely, and so she even talks about that if you take the time to look into it, where she says, I knew I was going to catch heat for this, and she said it months ago, but she goes, they even told me, don't do this because people won't understand why you're doing it. I did it anyways because I felt like it was right, and here's why, and it made sense. And I say that to say I still don't love her, and I still have questions about her record.
Honestly, her voting record has been really, really on point. In terms of progressive. It was very progressive.
I was going to say, right.
Surprisingly.
I always have to.
But her record as a prosecuting attorney, she did her best to win, and sometimes that wasn't necessarily the most ethical route, per se.
Ethical, thank you. Thank you for at least saying that. Yeah, 'cause that's the whole point, was there was even things where she was literally forced into showing evidence that was kind of, she tried to brush aside and things like that are just not at all aligned with the messaging that she runs with and apparently her voting record now, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, correct.
And so those things made me uneasy, and they really made me hope that he wasn't going to pick her, because obviously no one's surprised about my disdain for our current president based on these 3 episodes, but it's really hard for me to picture voting for Biden, especially that's why last time when I couldn't bring myself to vote for Trump, I posted anti-Hillary stuff because of the 2, she seemed like the worst option at the time. And
do you have a little bit of regrets?
And here's where I regret it. It's because it's actually further denigrated the actual Republican base. It's gotten to the point I talked about it last week. This is when they swallowed
up the Tea Party as a problem.
You know what? Between hold on real quick. Between last week and this week, and it wasn't even mine, so I'm not, butthurt over my own comment being deleted, but there was a narrative that was being pushed, I don't want to get into, by somebody, Trump supporter, as far as like the news media. And somebody had said, well, actually, the news media did cover this thing that you're saying wasn't covered. And they showed them just examples. That's all they said. And they go, oh, and look, right at the top of the list is CNN. And so I had seen that comment, and then I rolled by, and then I saw someone else talking about the same narrative, because like I talked about last week, ironically, every Trump supporter seems to share the exact same narrative within the exact same time frame almost every week. But anyways, that's whatever. And so I went back to try and find that screenshot they had shared to let someone else know, no, the media is covering this story. They had deleted that comment. Only that comment. They had deleted that comment. They left all the comments saying the media is the what's the word? What does Trump keep calling it? The enemy of the people. The media is the true virus, one of them said. All that shit stays. But the thing actually showing you that your narrative was false, not rudely, not attacking, just saying, hey, look, it was covered, and here's CNN even right at the top of the list. They just delete it. That is manipulation.
Absolutely.
They are manipulating the narrative to anyone looking at that
just
post.
Like the whole thing about the whole 6-year-old kid that was shot and killed. And justice for the 6-year-old kid.
That's the story. That was it.
Okay, yeah.
That was
justice
the story
for the
that I'm talking
kid.
about.
Well, first of all, it was talked about.
Justice was served.
But even before that, justice was served before the media even did it. He was arrested.
And he was 5. His name's Cannon.
I'm sorry.
Like, I'm a father. I have a boy on the way. No, but stop. But my point with this, hopefully it'll be old enough by then. But I don't want people, because you are a liberal, a self, proclaimed liberal and progressive and proud of it. I don't want people to go, oh, look how he dismissed this thing. Because it's not even that you're dismissing it. What you're saying is the people promoting it as, oh, the media doesn't care. That is completely a false narrative.
Well, not only is that a false narrative, they say justice for this person isn't there. Dude, the guy was immediately arrested. He was immediately arrested.
Exactly.
We had to have,
as he should be.
And then when you look at the Black Lives Matters protests, they had to have protests to go get the guys arrested. And now they're out of jail. They're walking around on vacation, and there's a whole different set of arguments for that, and
there's and that's just the I'm assuming you're talking about the George Floyd. I don't think he was released. I could be wrong, but just in case our audience is like, no, he wasn't. He may not have been released, but you could go Breonna Taylor, you could go Elijah McClain out in California. There's so many people you could name where it's egregious what these police officers did, and they are not even being investigated or fired.
But this one
much less
immediately
arrested for it.
So. Yeah.
Arrested me as he should have been, as anyone who commits a murder should be.
Right.
I don't care why you committed that murder. You should be arrested. And then that's why we have manslaughter versus first degree versus second degree, because there are different levels of murder. Sure.
Court systems.
In the court system. Exactly.
Right. And he immediately justice was served.
We'll get into
justice was served. That's the thing.
We'll get into justice and all that. But that's my point. So all that to say, my regret really is, it's not him as a president pre-COVID. It's not that. It's really not, because there's mixed bags. He's been a terrible leader, but the numbers have been great, and that will be the thing. And if I don't acknowledge that, stop. We can get into economy on a different episode. My point is, if I don't acknowledge that, no Trump voters even going to hear what we're saying.
Bro.
But what I'm saying is, those numbers, even if COVID had never happened, and I didn't know pre-coronavirus, are not worth the chaos that he allows us to continue to descend into.
His
not even allows.
Market numbers are great. That's the only thing I want to say. His market numbers were great. His numbers for the market were great. That's all I wanted to correct. I just wanted to make that correction.
I understand. Economy. That's fine. Like you say, we can talk economic, and we'll agree. I'm a Yang guy. We've made that clear.
I just wanted to make that
we obviously agree that we need to change things about the way we rank our right. I get that, but I'm saying I understand where you could support him pre-coronavirus. I really could. I'm not saying I would have voted for him. I most likely would have tried to find a third party at that point once Biden was a choice. But yes, to that point, we should move on to topic number 2.
Topic number 2. Yes. I believe this one's going to be your topic.
I'm taking topic number 2 this week, yeah? All
Cheers.
right, cool. Whew. All right, so shouldn't be too long of a topic. Similar to last week, I did want to talk about a news story, but I wanted to kind of expand upon it a little bit, just my thoughts on it. First of all, it is a football-focused topic. I know you're not much of a sports guy. I know that's more
college football.
And I was going to say,
college football and NHL. I've got those. They're in.
There we go. That's fair. That's fair. I should have said a football guy, and then you could have said college. But anyways, my point was, this is the Seattle Seahawks are involved. in the defensive backs, and we do, of course, not we, but they do, of course, have a couple of your UCF alumni.
Oh, come on. At this point, you're pulled into.
Well, I mean, I'm still, Hurricanes and Tar Heels are my teams, but that's go UCF as long as they're not playing them. But my point is, who are your two? It's
Shaquem and Shaquille
brothers.
Griffin.
Are they both? There we go. Yeah. Great players. Especially in college.
And one doesn't have a hand, so.
Speaking of which, true. Well, and to that point, I didn't know for sure, and I still don't. I didn't look into it. I'm sorry. I don't have the notes Zach does. Whether or not Shaquille's still on the team, or Shaquem, who only has one hand.
Shaquille has one hand. Shaquem was the one who...
Shaquem was and Shaquem's like a star. I know that for a fact.
Shaquille is still there.
Shaquille had a couple of great plays.
He's still on there.
Good. And even if he was on the bubble, he's in better shape because they had a rookie cornerback who I did look up the name. I'm going to look at it on my phone. I'll call myself out, but only because
So you do have notes. You
can't
liar.
pronounce it.
So you had notes.
Kima Cimarron.
Sorry, what now?
I have a note. It's Kima Cimarron, as best I can pronounce it.
Okay.
It really doesn't matter because what he did is, we're all in this quarantine type mode, especially the sports world. They're trying to keep everything as, closed off as possible. You have the bubble going on in the NBA. So the team hotel is going to be very strictly prohibited to the players, the staff, things like that. So this Kima guy, who was a rookie undrafted free agent that got signed, tried to sneak a girl on campus. He thought bringing his girlfriend and getting her to pretend to be some staff member was a really great idea.
Now, the real question, though, was it his girlfriend or was it a random Tinder hookup?
Well, you know what? Irregardless, and I know that's not a word, but it's my favorite word. My point is this. So in the NFL, if a quarterback signs a, let's say, 5-year deal for $100 million, the next big star quarterback has to top that. It has to be 5 for 110, 5, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if this girl, that's the story. If I didn't make that clear, the guy got cut for trying to sneak this girl. He's gone. He's gone. And as an undrafted free agent who snuck a girl in during coronavirus to a team host, I don't know that he's going to get another opportunity.
Yeah.
So let's say he doesn't. And let's say the average NFL career is 3 years, about $3 million on average, right? You have obviously the huge, but then you have the lower end undrafted free agents.
Let's just even assume $300,000 a year, right? What's the minimum?
Yeah, so about $1 million. Well, that's what I was going to say. Let's say half of that. Let's say he was going to make $1.5 million. So if the quarterback thing works in that way, that if the star quarterback's worth $100 million, the next star's got to be worth 110 or more. This girl was apparently worth $1.5 million. Can you imagine the price rates in Vegas right now? This is insane.
Yes.
I can't even. I mean, inflation is through the roof. But yeah, no. So I just thought that was really worth sharing.
Oh, yeah.
That, yeah. And I did want to ask you, I want to kind of let our audience who either don't know us or maybe just kind of know us social medially, in behind the, do you have any crazy stories of stupid things you did young for girls that you like look back and go, what was I even thinking at that point in my life?
Not really too much. No.
I'll give you one that I thought of when I was trying to think whether or not to ask you this question. And if you come up with one, cool. If not, I put you on the spot so we can move on to topic 3 and throw back our extra shot. We ran long on topic 1, but
as we always do.
I remember there was a girl I was kind of on again, off again, on again, off again, as you are in your young, 20s or whatever. And she had her own emotional issues and different stuff going on. So, I mean, nobody calls her. We're still somewhat friendly to this day in a degree. But my point is this. I remember she was staying at a hotel in the area because she had been here on like a, college internship and then left and then came back. And she's staying at a hotel. And we're like breaking up, but maybe making up. And I literally spent hours off and on sitting in my car in the parking lot of this hotel doing nothing, waiting until, and being like, hey, I'm still here for you if you need me. And then every few hours it'd be like, yeah, I could use some company. And then within an hour, it's like, I need to be alone. And it was like, and then I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I didn't in the moment. That was years later. I looked back and go, wow, what a waste of a night. But anyways.
But you didn't waste $1.5 million.
But it wasn't $1.5 million. You are correct. Although I could have been working on getting in shape for an NFL career. No, I was in my 20s.
And
I'm
also
5'8". That's not happening.
None of that was ever going to happen. I will go ahead and stop that for you.
Nice. I appreciate you calling me on my BS. Do you have any stories before we move on to topic 3?
No, I really don't.
Nothing to share this week? All right, I need a personal story from you next week, Zach. I'll pull one out of you, so be ready.
All right.
But
but
if you want to move on to topic 3, we just got to take.
Well, the only thing I wanted to talk about when you're talking about football is college football.
Oh yeah, I dominated that.
No, it's
please,
okay. College football. It was a continuation topic. The whole fact that already the NCAA just said that, hey, no, we're not going to be doing any sort of championship game. We will not declare a champion this year. So they did that. You have the Pac-12 who was like, we out. You have the Big Ten who was like, nah, we out. We're not playing this fall. And then, except for Nebraska, apparently. They're like, oh, no, we're going to do this anyways. Yeah, Scott Frost was like,
really?
All in, like, no, we're going to do this anyways.
Themselves?
Yeah, basically, they're like, we're going to do this ourselves. And, they gotten...
We beat our scrimmage squad 8 times this year. We're the champions.
Yes, that's basically what Scott Frost has gone into. They're getting in trouble for that. And so basically the big question is college football happening in fall? And I mean, you got a lot of people, UCF actually, the other cool thing is that's happening is it looks like UCF and apparently was starting a petition to go ahead and create a players union in college football, which yeah, and I think it was NCAA who's like, no, you can't legally have a union because you're not employees, and it's like, well, hold on. Just because it can't be legally defined as a union doesn't mean we can't all band together and do what we need to do.
Yeah, well, not only that angle, but also it's at least a debatable subject whether or not there's some form of employees if they're tasked with a certain job activity that they have to perform for the salary, which is their stipend / tuition. So
it's a whole
Are they not employees?
That's a whole separate thing that we can get into at some point, which I'd love to. That'd be a fun topic.
We definitely should, yeah.
Because
if for no other reason, then we definitely need the bring back the NCAA video game.
Yes, that's all I really want. I just want NCAA back. That was it. This is all about that. I don't really care about anything else. I just want NCAA back. I think we're good to move on now. I think I got my point clear.
Moving on to topic number 3. All right.
College football may or may not happen this year. Yay.
Hope it does.
I actually hope it doesn't happen because it's not
But
going to
assume that it's not safe, so I'm okay if it doesn't. That's
Cheers.
what I was going to say. Salute.
All right. So I'm taking the last topic. So here locally, there is a truck. This truck has on it a website called streetlights.info.
Okay.
I was informed about this. This streetlights.info truck, when you go to streetlights.info, it brings up a thing that starts ragging on LED streetlights. So I figured, hey.
Well, do we currently have LED, or is that an upgrade we're trying to make?
Yeah, some have LEDs. I'm about to go ahead and give you a deep dive into the world of streetlights because, A, I didn't know that there was this much involved, but there is. So
wait, before you do it, it'd be a bad look if I left the conversation. Our audience probably wouldn't stick around for that, right? No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing. I want to hear the deep dive.
All right,
Tell me all about this.
It's actually interesting. So
you know what? I want our audience to know that I relate with them when they heard that and they go, I'm like, no, don't worry, me too. But let's find out.
Okay, so first of all, streetlights, something you don't think about. They exist. Cool. But
I think about them every time they stop me from getting where I want to be, but in quarantine that hasn't happened much.
Stoplights. I'm saying street lights, so the ones that are overhead that make it so you can see.
Oh, I'm really glad I made that joke then because I really thought we were talking stoplights this whole time. Hold on.
Okay.
LED streetlights.
Yeah, so we're
I'm
not
with you
talking
now.
traffic lights. We're not talking traffic signals. We're talking street lights.
I hope I'm not the only one confused, but it is topic 3, so maybe I am,
Because
unless you guys
shots in.
are drinking at home the way you should be. But anyways, yeah. So we are on street lights. These are the things that illuminate
the roadway,
lights.
the roadway,
Yes.
the bus stops, stuff like this. So
why do people not? You said they're trying to stop them.
no,
From LED?
Streetlights.info. This guy has created this whole campaign. He's local. I figured out that he is very local. I think he's
Like local to us.
yes, and like local in my like neighborhood apparently, basically.
Oh my God! What if it's coming from inside the house?
Well, it's not, but it could be. He's actually hosting it on his own home server, and I was able to go like, oh, he's around me.
So it reminds you of you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So no, in any case, so basically he's hating on LED streetlights, like hating, like, and just going in like, this is terrible, this is bad, everything's terrible, and I was like, what the heck? No, LED is a great technology. It's a cost saver. It does all this stuff. And so I decided to do some research because that's what I do. And so it turns out, long story short, there are 4 major types of streetlights. I didn't realize that there were so many different types. So you have the high pressure sodium lights. They're slightly newer. They were introduced high pressure sodium, actually, they were the oldest type of street lights. They last about 6 years each. Not super highly efficient.
I'm pretty sure candles were the oldest form of street lights. Right?
No.
Fire? No?
Well, fire, yes.
No, there were street lamps. Yes, there were.
But they were not powered by candles. They were powered by gas. And a man had to go over there with a candle and light them. He used to have street lighters.
Okay,
all right,
come on, kerosene.
Come
it's
on.
fire.
All right, nobody cares.
But you're still wrong. Those were the original street lights,
sure
Zach.
as hell weren't candles.
Hey, this is what happens when we go
All
from
right,
shot
yeah,
2 to
fair
shot
enough.
3
All
really
right.
quickly.
Long story
All right,
short,
go ahead.
You think about those streetlights that you see on the roadway, right? You see the yellowy ones, you see the orange ones, you see the bright white ones, and you see the bluish ones, right? Those are the 4 you see.
Right.
So you have the oldest style that you see commonly is the high pressure sodium lights, yada yada yada. Last about 6 years. They're the yellowy orange ones. So they're like the orange dim ones. They're nice because they don't blind you. They don't do that. Yada yada. You have the low pressure sodium lights. They're more of a just yellow and warm white. They're the kind of middle one. They're not the dimmish orange ones. They're the warm white ones, yellow ones, and they also last about 6 years. And then you have the newer ones, which are those bright white ones that blind you on the roadways. They're called metal halide streetlights. And then the most recent type is LEDs. The fact that we have so many different streetlights is something that was news to me. But there's a whole.
Fair.
There's a whole.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, but like, it's not something you think of, right?
No, I never once had I have a thought about streetlights. So in any case, you have.
I thought we were talking about stoplights, so I'm only catching up.
Although there's a
ago,
whole
so
separate
definitely
topic about the stoplights and switching to LEDs, but we're not getting into that. So in any case, this guy.
So why does this? So what's this guy going?
So this guy hates hating on LEDs. I'm not even sure why. I was trying to research the guy and understand where he's coming from, and he just hates LEDs. And apparently, he's not the only one. There's a lot of groups out there saying LED streetlights are bad.
Why?
It's a great question. So they have a whole number of things that they're talking about. Number one, they're like, oh, you have to replace the whole street light and the all of the ballast and all the different bits inside of there. And it's like, well, yeah, you do have to replace all these different bits, but you have to do that if you were upgrading anyways. And those things are expensive and you have to replace them like yearly anyways. And the next thing they're like, oh, well, they flicker. Well, they flicker if you have a 120 hertz camera that you're recording on. Yes, you see a flicker then. Human eyes can't see a flicker. And they're like, oh, but the color is terrible. It's like super bright white blue and it keeps people awake. And which driving, you think it's a good thing, but they're talking like...
No, I take some of my best naps driving. Okay,
yeah,
so
right.
Don't mess.
But
with
no,
that.
they're like, oh no, blue
All right,
light's
I'm with
bad
this
for
guy.
sleeping.
Tell me all about him.
Blue lights
Screw
are
the
bad for
LEDs.
your our eyeballs and it hurts your sleep cycle. All right, cool, fine, whatever. But LEDs don't have to be a particular color. You know my house. My lights change to whatever color they want to be. That's the magic of LEDs.
Wait. Hey, one addition to this is on video. Is there any? Do you want to take the gamble and try and show off a color?
No, absolutely
come on.
No.
Just try it. What's gonna happen?
Well, I might turn invisible. Basically, my light. Fine. Okay, Google.
It's the end of the episode, and you turned invisible an episode ago. I already had to put in the notes on the technical difficulties, so don't mess around with me.
Okay, Google. Actually, turn lights purple.
There we go.
Okay, Google.
Yeah, look, you look like Mace Windu. Can you always do this?
No. But in any case, as you just saw, my lights can change brightness and colors, and it's cool, and LEDs. And then they're like, oh, but it's not cost effective. Well, no, okay, so you have your bright white streetlights out there, that metal halides or whatever the hell. They last 2.5 years. That's it. The bulbs last 2.5 years. You're like, oh no, the high pressure, the sodium lights, they last a lot longer. No, they last 6 years. Do you know how long a freaking LED bulb lasts?
Wait. Did you already say it or no? Because I didn't hear you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm gonna go 12.5.
20 plus years.
Woo! 15 was my other number too. I'd have been wrong both times.
Years. So
I was like, I purposely went 12 so you could still prove me wrong with like 15. So 20 really proved me wrong. Holy crap.
So you have these lights that do that, and then also LEDs are incredibly efficient. So all the other lights that we talked about, they're a bulb. So you still need to put a reflector around it, right? To get all the light to go the direction you want. Right?
So what you're telling me is in the year 2020, there's someone out there bitching about something just to bitch about something?
I know.
No.
Yeah. But overall, like, there are like 3 different types of streetlights. And actually, the coolest thing I found when I was doing all this research, because why the heck wouldn't you research streetlights other than the fact that it's boring as hell? Oslo in Norway.
Gotta come up with content somehow.
Exactly. Oslo in Norway. They actually implemented not only LED streetlights, they kind of did what I did in my own house. They did some really cool and built a smart network out of all their lights. So their lights actually have luminosity sensors. So they look at how light bright it is outside. They actually have weather.
And they react.
Not only that, they have weather delivering to them, so they know what the weather is. So depending on rain or just, moonlit skies, it changes the color of the bulbs. It's like my house where the bulbs change color based on everything that's going on, and peak hours. Dude, they saved like 50-75% power usage by switching to LEDs.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing because when you think about how many, the average streetlight uses anywhere between 200 to 400 watts per hour, which is...
Can you imagine... Hold on, real quick. Can you imagine if for 1 year, and this is as a former strong Republican, I'm going to say this. If for 1 year in our budget, we said, we're only going to spend military money to pay salaries and to maintain the equipment and the things we already have. That's all. We're not going to spend another dime except for the people already hired and the equipment we already own and maintaining that. And every other dime is going to go to reinvigorating something like our street
So you're talking infrastructure.
Or whatever it may be. Right, that infrastructure. Can you imagine how much money we could put in for 1 year? The next year you could go spend money on the military again and then maybe we'll revisit another year. Like, it's just so crazy to me that we can't have these conversations on a legitimate basis of what are we spending and what are we spending it on.
Exactly.
Like, that's for another episode.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah. Infrastructure spending. That's huge.
Oh, but yeah. We'll definitely
it was really kind of crazy. So, in any case.
No, yeah.
There's a guy
it turned out way more interesting than I imagined.
Right,
Go ahead. So, what's this guy?
So, this guy just owns a website, streetlights.info. Feel free to visit it. It's interesting. But he is hating on LED streetlights. And it's every single argument he has is a lie. And my favorite argument, though, they're ugly. It's like, wait, hold on. He's like, yeah, no, the enclosures are ugly. But no, I'm sorry. That's not a reason to hate on a utility. Like, This is a utility that if the street light is on, you can't even see it because it's just proving down light. It's just giving you light. Now, the one thing I will hate on a little bit is lights that are overly, which LEDs aren't, but that brighten everything around, that they let the light pollution leak up. I like science. I like astronomy. If you let your light bulbs leak light up, what happens is your night sky gets very bright. I know that in people who are in large cities, they see clouds that are lit up in sky at night. They can see clouds at night. You should not be able to see clouds at night. Clouds at night should be black. You should not be able to see the stars. That's how you know there's a cloud there. There's no stars. But because of pollution and streetlights and stuff like that, that's it. LEDs solve that problem because they're only directed downward. But yeah, that's a cool one. I don't know. Either way.
Yeah. No. I think that's really cool. I actually, compared to the joke I made at the beginning of the topic, it ended up much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. And again, it just seems like one of those things that, I can't imagine the spending is going to be that huge, especially when you look at the type of spending we do across the board.
20 years life.
That's what I'm saying. You end up saving money. Saving
So
money.
I replaced all the bulbs in my house. Yes, it was a high expenditure. My light bulbs, each one is like maybe 6 watts. They're all Wi-Fi powered. They're on 24/7. My electric bill dropped massively by switching to them. And not only that, I've had light bulbs here from 2010 that are still running perfectly fine and running just as well as the day that I bought them. I think maybe they've dimmed 5% or something.
My favorite part about this is imagining people that are watching this in the year like 2025, 2030. Let's just pretend it's going to happen. And they're like, wow, things been running for 30 years. Or whatever it would be, 20 years, but still.
No, yeah, I know. And so that's it's crazy. So that was what,
No, yeah. So what you're saying is, like with anything else, no matter what the topic is, no matter what the benefit of the topic is, someone somewhere will find the reason and put the effort into bitching about it.
This man put it on his truck. Like he put on his truck streetlights on info.
My mom's best friend put the Carpenters all the way across the back window of his truck. You remember the old 70s band with Karen Yeah, the Carpenters. Yeah, that Carpenters. The Carpenters. And so I'm just saying people put some random stuff on their trucks. That's all I'm getting at.
That man has put a lot of effort into that. That's all I'm saying. It was.
So give him one more shout out. What is it?
Streetlights.info. He's wrong.
Streetlights.info.
I assume it's a he. But streetlights.info.
Okay.
I don't
know.
Very
sexist of you.
It is.
How dare you assume only men are morons?
Oh, excuse me. I would like to make that very clear. That's not what I believe. I think that's a good point to wrap up on.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So since we didn't drop it throughout the show, I'm going to ask you guys to go find us at www.alcoholicallycorrect.com. Alcohol's correct on Twitter, or alcoholically correct on pretty much any social media platform that, we deem worth being on. So if you guys will do that, Zach, do you have any notes for the show before we cheers away?
I got nothing still. I mean, neither do you, because stand-up comedy isn't a thing for you. No,
not yet. Yeah, I got a baby coming in November. I'm not going to be outside before that unless I have to be. So outside of that, yeah, no, we'll talk about stand-up comedy come the new year, but I definitely will give you guys some dates. So, all right, we'll leave it on that.
Cheers.
Cheers.